Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Michael Torres always believed that a life shared by two people was built on small gestures. A cup of coffee left on the table before work, quick texts exchanged in the middle of the afternoon, a simple, "I'm home," when walking through the front door. To him, those details were the invisible glue that held a marriage together. So when he woke up that Saturday morning to his phone vibrating insistently on the nightstand, he never imagined that one careless digital slip-up by his wife would completely change the course of his life. It was almost 3 in the morning. Michael turned over, half asleep, and picked up the phone, expecting some work emergency. But the name that lit up the screen made his heart race: Vanessa. His wife. Who was right there beside him, sleeping peacefully under the same blanket. The message was short, but devastating: "Good night, love. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." Michael blinked a few times, trying to process it. He reread the message. Then read it again. He slowly sat up in bed, feeling his blood run cold. If Vanessa was saying "good night" to someone, it definitely wasn't him. The tone was different, far too intimate, charged with an anticipation he hadn't seen directed toward himself in months. He turned to look at her. Vanessa was sleeping deeply, her face calm, her breathing slow and steady, completely unaware of the mistake she'd just made. Michael just sat there, motionless, watching. How could she sleep so peacefully? In the minutes that followed, hundreds of thoughts raced through his mind. Could it be a mistake? Maybe she'd meant to send it to him and he was misreading it. But no, that didn't make sense. They'd just gone to bed together, exchanged their usual "good night" before turning off the lights. Why would she send another message to him minutes later? And more importantly, why use that tone? "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." See who? He was right there. He'd always been there. Michael felt his chest tighten, his throat go dry. It was that feeling like the ground was vanishing beneath his feet. He got up carefully so as not to wake her and walked to the living room. He sat on the couch, gripping his own phone tightly, staring at the glowing screen. He tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a message to a friend? But what friend would get a "good night, love" at 3 in the morning? And that "can't wait to see you tomorrow" carried a weight, an intimacy that didn't belong in a friendship. Michael ran a hand over his face and took a deep breath. He wasn't the kind of man to ignore red flags. As a financial consultant, he was trained to spot inconsistencies, patterns that didn't add up. And this definitely didn't add up. He spent the rest of the night awake, mentally replaying the past few months. Vanessa had changed, yes. Little things that, on their own, seemed insignificant, but now started forming a troubling picture. She'd begun dressing up more, even for appointments she used to consider trivial. She spent more time on her phone, always keeping the screen face down. She'd made excuses to go out alone on Saturdays, claiming meetings with Vincent, her business partner in a new venture, a women's clothing boutique she'd been running for the past few months. Michael had always supported her. Always encouraged her. Never suspected a thing. And now he wondered if he'd been foolish or just too trusting. By the time the sun started to rise, Michael had already made a decision. He wasn't going to confront her yet. He wouldn't act on impulse. He needed concrete proof, absolute certainty before blowing everything up. But he also wasn't going to wait weeks or months gathering evidence. His nature couldn't tolerate living in uncertainty. If something was wrong, he needed to know, and fast. He returned to the bedroom and lay down next to Vanessa, pretending to sleep. When she woke up around 8, Michael was already wide awake, staring at the ceiling. "Good morning, love," she said, stretching and turning to face him. She smiled, relaxed, just like always. Michael forced a smile back. "Morning." Vanessa kissed his cheek and got up, heading straight to the bathroom. Michael heard the shower turn on. That's when he noticed it, her phone was on the nightstand, charging. She'd forgotten to take it with her. This was the opportunity he needed. He got up slowly, picked up the device. It wasn't locked. Vanessa always said they had no secrets between them. The irony now tasted bitter in his mouth. He unlocked the phone and went straight to her messages. He scrolled through the contact list, looking for anything suspicious. And then he saw it, an archived conversation. The name was just V. Michael's stomach turned. He tapped on it. What appeared on the screen confirmed his worst fears. Daily messages exchanged over months. Intimate conversations, details of secret meetings, sensual photos Vanessa had sent, weekend plans. V was Vincent. Her business partner. The man Michael had met in person, greeted, even helped financially in the early days of the business. Michael felt a wave of nausea. He read message after message, each one more painful than the last. "You make me feel alive again," said one. "When I'm with you, I forget everything," said another. And the most recent one, sent in the early hours, "Good night, love. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." She'd sent it to Vincent, but somehow, maybe in her haste or exhaustion, she'd also sent it to Michael. One simple mistake that exposed months of lies. Michael started taking screenshots with his own phone. Every conversation, every exchanged image, every promise made. His hands trembled, but he stayed focused. He needed this. He needed irrefutable proof. When he was done, he placed her phone back exactly where it had been and returned to bed. Vanessa came out of the bathroom minutes later, wrapped in a towel, humming softly to herself. She seemed so light, so happy. Michael watched her, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was looking at a stranger. "Are you okay?" she asked, noticing he was staring. "You look weird." Michael forced another smile. "Just thinking about work. Nothing serious." She shrugged and started getting ready. As she applied lipstick, she casually said, "Oh, honey, I'm meeting Vincent this afternoon. We've got some boutique stuff to sort out. Might take a while, okay?" Michael pressed his lips together. "Sure. No problem." She smiled gratefully and kept putting on her makeup. Michael just watched, anger beginning to simmer inside him. When Vanessa left the house around 2 that afternoon, Michael waited exactly 5 minutes. Then he grabbed his car keys and followed her. He kept his distance, always a few blocks behind, careful not to be seen. Vanessa drove downtown to Portland and parked in front of a boutique hotel in the Pearl District. Michael parked across the street and watched. He saw her enter the lobby, adjusting her hair, glancing around as if checking whether anyone was watching. Minutes later, a tall man in a gray blazer and sunglasses walked into the hotel. It was Vincent. Michael recognized him immediately. Vincent looked around, took off his sunglasses, and went straight to Vanessa, who was waiting near the elevators. Michael watched as they kissed. It wasn't a quick, discreet kiss. It was long, passionate, the kind that made it clear this wasn't new or casual. They stepped into the elevator together, and the doors closed. Michael stayed in his car, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He took a deep breath. He wasn't going in there. He wasn't going to make a scene. That wasn't the kind of man he was. But he also wasn't going to let this go. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer. It didn't matter that it was Saturday. He'd pay whatever it took. The secretary answered, he explained it was an emergency, and minutes later, the lawyer called back. Michael told him everything and sent the screenshots he'd taken that morning. The lawyer listened in silence, then said firmly, "Michael, you've got everything you need. We'll file for divorce first thing Monday. But there's something else you should know." Michael frowned. "What?" The lawyer continued, "You're one of the main investors in their boutique, right? That means you can pull your capital immediately if you believe there's been a breach of trust. And given that your wife is having an affair with her business partner, that certainly qualifies. Michael was silent for a few seconds, processing. He hadn't thought of that. The boutique had been Vanessa's idea, yes, but he'd provided most of the initial capital. They'd signed an investment agreement, not a marital partnership contract. That changed everything. "Are you saying I can withdraw my money?" he asked. "Exactly. And more. You can claim that the relationship between the partners compromises the integrity of the business. That could trigger a financial investigation. If they've been using company funds to finance extramarital affairs, that's a misuse of funds. It could seriously complicate things for both of them." For the first time that day, Michael smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd finally found a path forward. He hung up and stayed there, waiting. Vanessa came out of the hotel 2 hours later, Vincent by her side. They chatted animatedly, laughing, completely unaware they were being watched. They got into their separate cars and drove off in opposite directions. Michael headed back home. He had a lot to plan. That evening, Vanessa came home around 7. She walked in with a bag of Thai food and a smile on her face. "Hey, love. I brought dinner. Figured you'd be hungry." Michael was sitting on the couch, watching TV. He looked at her and smiled. "Perfect. I am." They ate together, talked about trivial things, as if it were just another ordinary night. Michael asked questions about her business meeting. Vanessa lied with astonishing ease, making up details about meetings that never happened, supplier issues that didn't exist. He just listened, mentally noting every lie. On Sunday, Michael woke up early and brought Vanessa coffee in bed, something he hadn't done in months. She was surprised, almost touched. "Honey, this is amazing. What's the occasion?" Michael sat on the edge of the bed, holding his own mug, and looked straight into her eyes. "Your message from Friday night." Vanessa's smile froze. "Message? The one you accidentally sent to me." The color drained from her face. The mug in her hand started to shake. "Michael, I don't know what you're talking about." He pulled his own phone from his pocket and showed her the screen. There it was, "Good night, love. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." Vanessa looked at the screen, then at him, then back at the screen. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Michael continued, his voice eerily calm, "At first, I thought it was for me. But then I realized we'd already said goodnight before bed. So I got curious. And you know what I found?" Vanessa started to cry. "Michael, please let me explain." He slowly shook his head. "You don't have to. I already know everything." Vincent. The hotel. Months of lies. The mug slipped from her hand, spilling hot coffee onto the white sheets. Vanessa didn't even notice. "How did you find out?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Michael stood up and walked to the window. "You left your phone on the nightstand. Unlocked. Remember how you always said we had no secrets?" He turned to face her. "Yeah. I believe that. You, apparently, didn't." Vanessa tried to move closer, but he raised his hand, stopping her. "No. Don't come near me." She collapsed into tears. "It was a mistake. I was confused. I don't even know how this happened. I still love you, Michael. You have to believe me." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You love me? Interesting. Because the messages I read didn't sound like someone who loves her husband. They sounded like someone who found something new and exciting that makes her feel alive again." Vanessa sobbed. "I can explain everything. Please, just give me a chance." Michael reached under his pillow, pulled out an envelope, and tossed it onto the bed. You don't need to explain. I understand perfectly. These are screenshots of every conversation between you and Vincent. Months of evidence. You two were very careless. Vanessa opened the envelope with trembling hands. She flipped through the printed pages, each one showing a conversation, a photo, a lie. When she finished, she was as pale as a ghost. What are you going to do? Michael crossed his arms. I'm divorcing you. That's already decided. My lawyer is filing the papers Monday. But there's more. She looked at him, bracing for the worst. You remember I invested in the boutique, right? 40% of the initial capital came from me. Vanessa started to understand. No. Please don't do this. I'm pulling all my investment. Immediately. And I'm requesting a full audit of the company's accounts. If you two used even a single cent from the boutique to fund your little romantic getaways, it's going to cause a legal mess you won't forget anytime soon. Vanessa dropped to her knees. Michael, this will destroy everything. The boutique is my dream. It's everything I've built. He crouched down to her eye level. You destroyed my dream first. I dreamed of a family, loyalty, respect. You turned that into lies. So now you'll feel what it's like to lose something that matters. He stood up and headed for the door. You've got 48 hours to leave this house. Take your things and go wherever you want. Vincent's place, maybe. See if he'll take you now that this scandal's about to blow up. Vanessa shouted after him, You can't do this. This house is mine too. Michael turned slowly. Read the purchase contract. It's in my name. You never wanted to formalize anything between us, remember? You always said paperwork didn't matter. Well, now those papers are going to protect me. He left the room, leaving Vanessa in tears. He walked downstairs, grabbed his car keys, and went to a nearby cafe. He needed to get out of there, breathe, clear his head. He ordered a double espresso and sat by the window. His phone rang. It was his lawyer. Michael, I managed to move some things up. I'll send the investment withdrawal documents today. And I've got news, I spoke to a forensic accountant. He can start the audit as early as Tuesday. Michael took a deep breath. Perfect. Get it all done. He hung up and sat there, watching the busy street. He felt strange. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness. It was a mix of relief and disappointment. Relief at finally knowing the truth. Disappointment at discovering the woman he loved had never really existed. He returned home a few hours later. Vanessa was gone. He took the opportunity to change the locks. Called a locksmith and paid extra to get it done the same day. When it was finished, he texted Vanessa, Locks changed. When you come back to get your things, let me know and I'll leave the door open. But only by appointment. She replied minutes later, You're being cruel. He typed back, Cruel is what you did. I'm just being fair. On Monday, the lawyer filed for divorce. On Tuesday, the official notice of investment withdrawal arrived at the boutique. Michael heard through indirect sources that Vincent panicked. Without Michael's capital, the business couldn't survive. They had bills to pay, suppliers to settle with, employees on payroll. The sudden withdrawal of investment was like pulling a pillar out from under a building. On Wednesday, Vanessa showed up at the house. She rang the doorbell insistently. Michael opened the door. She looked different, worn down, with deep dark circles under her eyes. We need to talk. He stood in the doorway, blocking her entry. There's nothing to talk about. Michael, please. Vincent's desperate. The boutique's going under. We're going to lose everything. He shrugged. That's your problem. But you're destroying everything I built. Michael leaned closer to her. No, I built it. With my money. You just took advantage. And betrayed my trust in the process. Vanessa tried a different approach. Okay, I messed up. I admit it. But we don't have to end like this. I can break it off with him. We can go to therapy. We can rebuild. Michael shook his head. Vanessa, you don't get it. This isn't about rebuilding. It's about dignity. I respect myself too much to stay with someone who betrayed me. And you? Clearly, you didn't respect yourself enough to be loyal. He started closing the door. She stuck her foot in the way. What if I tell everyone you're being vindictive? That you're using money to destroy me? Michael smiled. Go ahead. I've got proof of everything. What do you have? Flimsy excuses and a documented affair. He removed her foot from the doorway and shut it. In the weeks that followed, the story started to spread. Portland wasn't that big, and the business community was even smaller. Soon everyone knew, Vanessa had cheated on her husband with her business partner, and Michael had responded by pulling his investment. Opinions were divided. Some thought Michael had been too harsh. Others applauded his decision. But one thing was certain, the boutique didn't survive. Without capital and with a damaged reputation, Vincent and Vanessa had to shut down in less than 2 months. Michael heard through a mutual friend that Vanessa and Vincent's relationship didn't last either. When financial and social pressure mounted, they started blaming each other. Vincent said Vanessa had been careless, that the mistaken message had ruined everything. Vanessa shot back that Vincent never had the courage to go public with their relationship, that he always wanted to keep it hidden. The passion that once seemed so strong crumbled under the weight of real consequences. One afternoon, 3 months after their confrontation, Michael was having lunch with a client at a restaurant. He saw Vanessa walk in. She looked different, thinner, weary. She was with a friend. Their eyes met for a second. Vanessa seemed like she wanted to approach, but Michael looked away and went back to his conversation with the client. There was nothing left to say. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Michael kept the house, the investments, and a strange sense of hollow victory. Yes, he'd come out on top financially. Yes, he'd made his point. But it still hurt. There were still nights when he'd wake up and, for a split second, expect to find Vanessa beside him. There were still moments when he'd reach for his phone to send her a silly message before remembering it was all over. But slowly, Michael began to rebuild. He focused on work, reconnected with friends he'd neglected, started therapy. He learned that betrayal wasn't about him not being enough. It was about choices Vanessa made, decisions she took, values she lacked. And most of all, he learned that valuing yourself isn't cruelty, it's a necessity. A year later, on a Saturday morning, ironically, a Saturday, Michael woke up alone, but at peace. He made coffee, sat on the porch, and realized he no longer felt anger. The sharp pain was gone. All that remained was a scar. And scars, he'd learned, are signs that you survived. He checked his phone and saw a notification. It was a message from Julie, an acquaintance who worked in the same building. It simply read, "Good morning. Want to grab coffee today?" Michael smiled. It wasn't a sad smile. It was genuine. He typed back, "Sure. What time?" As he waited for her reply, he looked out the window and thought, life goes on. And sometimes, endings that seem destructive are just new beginnings in disguise. Months passed, and Michael built an entirely new routine. Julie became part of it. It wasn't a rushed romance, it grew slowly, with respect and transparency. She knew the whole story. Michael hadn't hidden anything. And she, in turn, carried her own scars. That brought them together in a way Michael never imagined possible. As for Vanessa, Michael heard through others that she'd left Portland. She moved to Seattle, started fresh in a new job, far from judgmental stares and whispered comments. Vincent left town too. The dream of the boutique became nothing more than a bitter memory. And so, each went their own way. Michael with the lesson that trust, once broken, can't be glued back together. Vanessa with the weight of understanding that actions have consequences. And Vincent learning that complicity in betrayal never ends well for anyone. That mistaken message sent in the early hours of that Saturday morning changed everything. But it didn't destroy Michael. It revealed him. It revealed his strength, his ability to protect himself, his dignity. And in the end, he realized the greatest gift Vanessa had given him, unintentionally, was the truth. Because living in a lie would have been far worse than facing the pain of discovery. And Michael Torres, a man who always believed in small gestures, learned that the greatest act of self-love is knowing when to walk away. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.